Hey there Eversoul fans, if you're finding it tough to pick the perfect team, you've landed in the right spot. Welcome to our ultimate Eversoul tier list, your go-to guide for crafting the most powerful party in the game. We've ranked every character from S tier, the absolute game changers, to D tier, the ones you might want to avoid. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting, this list is your ticket to dominating the battlefield with only the best of the best. And don't worry, we're keeping this list fresh with every new update or balance change, so be sure to hit that subscribe button and check back often. Eversoul is more than just a pretty face, though it's got plenty of that too. This Gacha RPG is a visual feast, throwing you right into 3D anime-style battles where strategy and synergy are key. With tons of characters to collect, each bringing their unique combat style to the table, the possibilities for party combinations are endless. Plus, you get to build and decorate your own little town on the side. So, ready to dive in? Let's break down who's worth your precious summons and who's better left on the sidelines. I'm quickly moving on to the video and I'm ranking characters in Eversoul. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of tier list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching. I group the characters as damage dealer, debuffer, buffer sustain, and tank, respectively.
My friends, only 0.1% of viewers subscribe. If you like this type of content, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you in advance for your support.
The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Dora, Jacqueline, Manon, Naya, Otoha, Bryce, and Lute. Alright, let's talk about the D tier characters in Eversoul, the ones you'll probably want to avoid unless you're really out of options. Now, don't get me wrong, these characters aren't completely useless. In fact, they can hold their own during the early stages of the game when you're just getting started. But as you progress, you'll quickly find they're more like that old pair of shoes you keep around just in case but never really wear. Let's kick things off with Dora, the human warrior who's all about crowd control. Sounds great, right? Well, not quite. While she can handle groups of enemies at first, her damage just doesn't keep up as you get deeper into the game. It's like bringing a slingshot to a laser fight. A cool trick for a while, but you're gonna need something stronger soon. Then there's Jacqueline, our undead striker with a mix of debuffs and assassin skills. She might sound like a deadly combo, but she's more like a jack of all trades and a master of none. She tries hard, but she just doesn't have that wow factor to stand out. And what about Manon and Naya, our fairy casters? Both of them specialize in crowd control, but they're kind of like the backup singers of the group. They have their moments, but they never really get to shine on the main stage. Manon at least brings some attack buffs to the table, which can be nice, but you'll quickly find yourself replacing her with someone who brings more power and versatility. And Naya? Well, she's there, doing her best to control the crowd, but she doesn't bring much else. It's like having a flashlight with dying batteries. It works, but not for long. Last but not least, we've got Otoha, Bryce, and Lute. Otoha can counter some annoying opponents, but he's slow and not great in raids. Bryce, our undead defender, is a master at taunting enemies and buffing allies, but he feels more like a gentle nudge than a proper tank. And Lute, the beast defender, does his best charging mana and keeping allies buffed. But let's be honest, you'll probably only use him until someone better comes along. They're all fine in a pinch, but you'll find that their usefulness runs out fast. Think of them as your temporary team until you score those higher tier characters who really pack a punch. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Flynn, Honglan, Jade, Mika, Nicole, Xiaolian, Cherry, Honglan, Catherine, Erica, Adrian, Chloe, Claire, and Renee. Alright, so let's dive right into the C tier souls of Eversoul. Now, these characters might not be the cream of the crop, but hey, sometimes you gotta make do with what you got, right? Think of them as the underdogs of the game. They won't carry you through the toughest stages or help you speedrun the story, but they do have their moments of glory. Let's face it, if you're still figuring out the meta or just getting started, these souls can give you a taste of what this idle RPG is all about without totally sinking your progress. First up, we've got some real niche picks here. For instance, Violet might surprise you. She can actually pack a punch against bosses or in specific scenarios if you know how to play to her strengths, and that's the key here. Learning their skills and abilities is crucial. You've got souls like Honglan, a beast caster who's all about reducing enemy mana and dishing out debuffs and damage over time. And then there's Jade, a human caster who's not just tossing spells but also buffing her allies to help them shine just a little brighter. Let's not forget about our support lineup. We have Catherine and Erica, both fairy supporters, who bring a lot to the table when it comes to healing, shielding, and cleansing. They might not have the most raw power, but they've got your back when you're in a tight spot. Whether it's Catherine keeping your team alive with buffs and shields, or Erica doing a bit of everything healing, debuffing enemies, and even dealing some damage over time, these gals can definitely be the backbone of your team when you're just starting out. So, are these souls game changers? Not really. But do they deserve a little love? Absolutely. Think of them as your trusty sidekicks, not your superheroes. They'll help you get a bit further along the story, maybe help you figure out your playstyle, and who knows, you might even find a hidden gem among them. Sure, they might eventually fizzle out as you reach those higher stages, but sometimes that's just part of the journey. So, if you're still figuring things out or just want to try something different, give these C-tier souls a spin. You might just find yourself pleasantly surprised. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Ayame, Catherine Radiant, Cherry, Claudia, Edith, Eileen, Eve, Kana, Nini, Sigrid, Toka Yatogami, Valana, Eileen, Erusha, Hazel, Lindsay, Mephistopheles, Mika, Haru, Prim, Rebecca, Siha, Ira, Catherine Radiant, Suni, and Talia. Alright, let's dive into the B tier characters in Eversoul. Now, these characters aren't going to blow your mind, but don't underestimate them just yet. B-tier souls are like the reliable sidekicks in a superhero movie. They might not always be in the spotlight, but they know how to hold their own and can definitely help you get through the early and some mid-game stages. Sure, they might struggle a bit when you hit those tougher endgame moments, but with the right level ups, they can still pack a decent punch. If you've got them, don't feel bad. They're better than nothing, and with a bit of investment, they'll prove their worth. So, who do we have in this tier? Let's start with Ayame, the demon caster, who's all about crowd control and those pesky debuffs. She's perfect for dealing with clusters of enemies and making their lives miserable with damage over time. Then there's Catherine, your classic human supporter, who's great at shielding and healing your squad. Need someone to mess up the enemy's plans? Say hello to Cherry, a human ranger who's an expert in debuffs and damage over time. Oh, and don't forget Claudia, the angel caster with a knack for crowd control and, you guessed it, even more debuffs. Now, while these characters might not be your game changers, they're like your secret weapons when you need them most. Take Eileen for example, a human striker with skills to buff the party and snipe enemies down. Or Kana, who's got potential as a sub DPS, particularly against bosses. You've got Nini and Valana bringing the undead vibe with their crowd control and damage over time. And Sigrid, who can deal high damage and has great utility as long as you're willing to work around her survival issues. These are the units that will make you go, hey, they're actually pretty useful. But let's be real, the B tier is where things start to get interesting. These characters might not carry your entire team, but they bring valuable skills to the table that you won't find in lower tiers. Whether it's Rebecca buffing your allies, Siha healing and supporting your beasts, or Mika controlling and debuffing, these characters can really help keep things balanced. So while you're aiming for those coveted SSS or A tier souls, don't overlook these B tier heroes. They might just surprise you with how far they can take you on your Eversoul journey. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Aki, Dominique, Hazel, Kurumi Tokisaki, Lindsay, Lute, Miriam, Sakuyo, Ira, Dominique, Clara, Jiho, Joanne, Onyx, Talia, Vivian, and Petra. Alright, let's dive into the A tier characters in Eversoul. Now, these are the characters that might not steal the spotlight like their S tier or SS tier counterparts, but trust me, they bring some serious value to the battlefield. Think of them as your hidden gems, the unsung heroes that will keep your team strong and stable when you need it most. These A tier souls are perfect for filling those gaps when your S tier roster feels a little thin, or for bringing some unique utility that could turn the tide of battle. Remember, pairing them with your top tier units can really unlock their full potential. Take Aki for example. She's an incredible human striker who's all about sneaky assassinations and shutting down enemy mana generation. With the right setup, Aki can be an absolute menace, disrupting enemy plans and picking off key targets before they know what hit them. Or consider Lindsay, another human warrior with a flair for assassin skills. She's got crowd control abilities, can taunt enemies, and debuffs their defense, making her a great pick to protect your backline or to soften up enemies for the kill. Let's not forget about some of the standout support units here. Talia, our fairy supporter, is all about debuffing enemies and keeping her allies in top shape with healing, shields, and buffs. And if you need a healer with some solid team utility, Onyx is your guy, providing full team heals and elevating your production units to new heights. Just make sure you build your team carefully around his abilities. His ultimate can be a game changer, but it requires some strategic planning to use effectively. And speaking of versatility, we've got some fantastic defenders and casters here too. Lute, the Beast Defender, excels in crowd control, charging mana, and buffing allies while taunting enemies. Meanwhile, Vivian, a fairy caster, brings excellent crowd control and buffs, making her a great addition to any team looking for more control over the battlefield. So, don't sleep on these A-tier heroes. With the right equipment and strategy, they can absolutely shine, helping you to keep climbing those ranks and securing victories. Keep upgrading and experimenting, and who knows, maybe your next favorite hero is hiding right here in the A-tier. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Bryce, Lizelot, Melfis, Naomi, Ayama, Garnet, Nini, Belef, Catherine, Radiance, and Dominique. Alright, let's dive right into the S tier characters in Eversoul. These heroes are the ones you want to prioritize, and trust me, they are absolute game changers. While they may not reach the overpowered levels of the SS tier, they're still the best of the best, providing you with an unfair advantage in almost every battle. If you're lucky enough to snag these characters early on, hold onto them tightly and start upgrading their stats and ascending their rarity as soon as you can. You'll be cruising through most stages with ease, and who doesn't love a quick and satisfying victory, right? Now, let's talk strategy. Sure, building a team with only S tier characters might sound tempting, but here's the catch. You won't find many warriors or strikers in this tier. That means you might have to mix things up a bit. However, even without a full roster of these roles, these S tier champs are the backbone of any formation. They may not be the most versatile on their own, but they will never let you down. Think of them as your MVPs, the ones you build the rest of your team around. They're the cream of the crop and they know it. So, who are the top picks in this stellar lineup? Let's start with Bryce, our undead defender, who's got crowd control down to an art. He taunts enemies, buffs allies, and makes life miserable for the bad guys. Then we have Lizelot, the demon ranger who drains mana like a pro, debuffs foes, and dispels enemy buffs. She's a one-woman army. And we can't forget Melfis, an undead warrior who's all about that crowd control and enemy debuffing life. For the Magic fans, Naomi and Ayami bring the heat as casters with tons of crowd control and damage over time. And of course there's Garnet, who not only deals some serious damage but also buffs your allies and makes enemies regret crossing your path. And let's not forget the support heroes that truly elevate your team to the next level. Belef is an all-rounder who offers healing, cleansing and buffing. Her crit buffs and damage amplification can turn your team into a wrecking ball, though you might need to be careful with her positioning. Catherine, meanwhile, is your go-to for shielding and healing allies. She's like that friend who always has your back. And Dominique? Oh, she's all about mana manipulation and has some killer buffs for your int-based teams. She's an excellent side option if you've got the resources to invest in her. So, grab these characters, level them up, and watch as they dominate the battlefield. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Tasha, Violet, Larimar, Eve, and Urea. Alright folks, let's dive into the S+ tier characters in Eversoul, the creme de la creme of souls you absolutely want on your team, starting with Tasha, our newest member of the Beast faction who has decided that battles are just another dance floor. And boy does she know how to dance. Tasha's strength comes from keeping her friends close, literally within 3.5 meters, to unlock some crazy attack buffs. Her skills are like a well choreographed routine, picking off enemies one by one with style. She's perfect for those intense raid battles where you need to stack up on crits and deal massive damage, but she's also got some tricks up her sleeve for PvE and arena matches. Just make sure she's the only ranged unit on your team, and watch her steal the show. Now, let's talk about Violet, the queen of damage over time comps. If you're facing a boss and need to melt them down fast, Violet's your girl. Her damage scales with the number of DOT effects you've got going, and if you manage to stack all 6 at once, you're looking at some truly jaw-dropping damage numbers. Just be warned, Violet's not a fan of multiple enemies or cleanses, and she's a bit of a glass cannon. Keep her safe from enemy assassins and she'll do wonders, but if you're running a DOT comp, she's a must-have for maximizing your single target damage output. Let's switch gears to Larimar, a versatile support who knows her way around raids and the Eversoul super secret content. She's got a little bit of everything: buffs, debuffs, stuns, but really shines when paired with a hyper carry. If you're planning to go big or go home in the game, Larimar's relatively low investment requirements make her a smart pick. Just remember, she's most valuable in setups with strong carries, otherwise she's just another face in the crowd. And with new characters on the horizon, like Chaotic Lindsay or a potential crossover, you might want to think twice before sinking all your Everstones into her. Next up, let's give some love to Eve, our third soul from the Demon faction. Eve is a bit of an enigma. She's labeled a defender, but she doesn't quite fit the mold. Think of her as a hybrid of a support and a single target DPS, depending on the setup. With her bound soul mechanic, she can either shield your team's biggest hitter or turn into a powerhouse herself if she has the highest attack stat. Her kit is packed with unique mechanics like damage sharing and a mind control ultimate that can turn enemies against each other. Eve's versatility makes her a valuable addition to any lineup, especially in raids, but newer players might find it more efficient to invest in a more straightforward hyper carry at first. And finally, let's talk about Urea, the angelic powerhouse who's been shaking things up since her debut. Urea is not just a healer. She's a tactical genius on the battlefield, with buffs for team attack, speed, and even type compatibility damage. Her healing isn't just reliable, it's constant. Instead of basic attacks, she heals her teammates, which makes her a standout in any team composition. Plus, her ultimate provides a fantastic defensive boost, reducing incoming damage while amplifying her healing, making her a great pick for high-stakes battles where every bit of survivability counts. In short, Urea is a must-have for both PvP and PvE content, especially for newer players looking for a solid all-rounder who can fit into almost any team. So, there you have it. These S+ tier souls are all about versatility, synergy, and maximizing your damage output. Whether you're going for the flashy plays with Tasha, stacking Diots with Violette, or setting up your hyper carry with Larimar or Eve, there's a soul here that fits every strategy, and with Urea holding things down as the ultimate support, your team will be unstoppable. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.